I have received hundreds of ballots from judges. And recently I spent some time going over some of the ballots from my freshman year. And as you might expect, most of them didn't say quite what I wanted them to say. Now, there were a select few that were brutally honest, but the majority of them had things like wonderful and good job written in the comments with 6th place written at the bottom. Now, don't get me wrong, I appreciated the attempts at softening the blow, but most of the time I wasn't given suggestions on how I could improve, because wonderful and good job were being used as euphemisms for awkward and not ready for prime time. And that's how life is now. We mask the truth to soften the blow and think that we're fixing a problem. I don't like the use of words that shield us from the truth, words that are indirect and take the emotion out of everything. And as time goes on, it continues to deteriorate. For example, we took a simple title, garbage man, changed it to sanitation worker, then changed it again to environmental waste technician. In about 50 years, we took something easy to understand, garbage man, and gave it a 9-syllable facelift because somehow environmental waste technician sounds more respectable. But has the job changed? No. Are the people that perform this much needed job now more respected? Probably not. But the real question should be, how do we make this job more respectable? We've euphemized the job, but have accomplished very little. And Professor Steven Pinker of Harvard University believes that we have been conditioned to expect people to soften the blow. Using euphemisms can reveal a lot about our attitude toward conversation, he states. No matter how much we profess a desire for people to say what they feel, we expect them to use indirect speech. But why? In the 1980s, political satirist and comedian George Carlin gave us a classic routine called euphemisms. In it, he gives us a stinging example. He talks about the condition that occurs when a soldier returns home from war, when they have been pushed to their limit and their mind and body just snap. After World War I, we call this condition shell shock. Very simple, 2 syllables. The words sound like exactly what is happening to the body. Then came World War II. The exact same condition now being called battle fatigue. 4 syllables. After Korea, to quote Carlin, the humanity has been squeezed completely out of the phrase. It is totally sterile now, as the exact same condition is now being called operational exhaustion. 8 syllables. And finally, after Vietnam, we have given the condition an 8-syllable facelift, now with a hyphen. Post-traumatic stress disorder. The emotion has been taken completely away from the condition and tells us absolutely nothing about what these soldiers are going through. And to quote Carlin again, I'll bet you, if we'd still been calling it shell shock, some of those Vietnam veterans might have gotten the attention that they needed at the time. And if Carlin were still alive today, I can only imagine what he would think. As our sons and daughters are returning home from the Middle East, in our 140-character world, we simply say they have PTSD. But life isn't a comedy routine where we can wonder aloud why toilet paper became bathroom tissue, or why now big-time corporations are calling their receptionists first impression coordinators. What are we doing? Real damage is being done, because experts believe that if we change the name from slum and ghetto to substandard housing in economically disadvantaged areas, somehow makes it not a slum. Time has shown us we aren't solving anything. Now, Carlin's bit was meant to be satirical, but he actually raised attention to a very serious topic. In our modern, politically correct world, there is a constant shuffling of the language, with an attempt to remove the emotion from everything. Professor Albert Bandura of Stanford University, a widely respected expert on indirect speech, believes believes that language shapes thought patterns on which actions are based, but these activities can take on a very different appearance simply by changing what they are called. We are reshaping the way that we look at events, behaviors, and language. We take something that someone deems negative in some way and we rename it. And now the thing gets a new name, one with a more positive impression that leaves us feeling accomplished. In Politics and the English Language, George Orwell wrote that euphemisms in language are meant to make lies sound truthful and murder respectable. Now that's something to think about. There's a new trend in politics and business suggesting that real leaders never use the word problem. Instead, they use the word opportunity. Books and articles supporting this change are in the hundreds. Inc. magazine, leaders don't fix problems, they turn them into opportunities. Harvard Business Review, how to turn a problem into an opportunity. 1000ventures.com, turning a problem into an opportunity. See a trend? So what's the challenge with this line of thinking? Well, here's the issue. I can choose to attack an opportunity if I want to, but when I ignore a problem, it doesn't get solved, and it tends to resurface in a very bad way. In 2001, the U.S. government began to officially track the number of military suicides that take place annually. And since 2001, the number has increased every year. In 2011, the number of suicides reached 349. That is 38 more than the number of people who died in battle that year. But wait, this is 40 years after we changed the name to post-traumatic stress disorder. How can the numbers possibly be getting worse? And no, I'm not trying to make light of the situation, but somewhere along the way to solving the problem, we took the opportunity to change its name. The new name gave us a more positive impression and left us feeling accomplished. And in the process, we forgot that we were supposed to solve it. And when the statistic came out, Defense Secretary Leon Panetta simply stated, despite the increased efforts and the increased attention, the trends continue to move in a troubling and tragic direction. Of course they did. PTSD is not an opportunity. It is a serious mental health problem that affects the lives of so many veterans, and with the problem only getting worse, what's our solution? Well, now there's actually a push to drop the word disorder altogether. Just call it PTS because of the stigma attached to the word disorder. So unfortunately, we've learned nothing. I want to challenge America to set aside our political correctness for just a second. There are some amazing people returning home from the Middle East that need us. So I will leave you with this tip of the hat to George Carlin. Maybe if we were still calling it shell shock, our sons and daughters returning home from Iraq and Afghanistan might be getting the attention, support, and most importantly, the help that they truly deserve.